All right, thank you so much for joining us. My name is Dr. Cameron Garber, and I'm so excited to come to you today with our Keeping Runners on the Road series. So one of the things I wanted to talk about with this is that runners are endurance athletes. So they have to condition themselves for running for a long period of time, and so that does take some training volume. So one of the most interesting things about that is runners tend to get endurance type injuries. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that later, about what kind of endurance injuries are and what we can do about that to some degree. But before that, I want to let you know, if you are interested in learning more about this Keeping Runners on the Road series, go ahead and drop your name in the comments down below. Just say, I'm in. We'd love to be able to tag you in the rest of these posts and help you get all of these tips and tricks about what you can do to avoid injury, avoid problems, and keep running on the road. So, with endurance type injuries, so what are endurance injuries? So those are overuse injuries, so repetitive motion that just kind of wears things and flares them up over time. So acute injuries, meaning like a rolled ankle is more of an acute injury, something you do and there's an immediate result of pain or problems. Acute injuries are actually not very common, only about 20% or so, but 80% of all running injuries are overuse injuries. So just from that repetitive motion. And so that's an interesting problem, but what do we do about it then? Because we've got to get the training volume in. So how do we balance that out? The training volume with the fact that if I run the same way every time, it's going to cause problems. And so there's a few things that we can do. One is cross training. The biggest thing that we can do to avoid overuse injury is cross training. So different types of running. So uphill, downhill running, speed work, distance, slow days, trail, all kinds of different ways to mix up your running so it's not the same motion all the time every day. But cross training also in other sports, other things, so that we're not using the same muscle sets all the time. So cycling, swimming, other sports, although they don't necessarily help improve your running, they help you stay fit and healthy so that you don't get these overuse injuries. And that's the big key. And then you can continue running. So it doesn't really matter as much if I keep running and keep digging myself a deeper hole of overuse injury. That's going to take me off of the road and decrease my performance more than training other body systems that may not necessarily improve my performance in running, but it's going to help me keep running. And so cross training is really, really important. Another couple of things that we often overlook, though, is mental fatigue, stress, and getting inadequate sleep. So let's take a look at those things a little bit more closely. Mental fatigue is a big, big deal. It actually decreases performance when we're mentally fatigued. So sometimes we'll go on a run in the evening or at the end of a long day to try and, check out and clear our head. But that may actually not be the best time to go running, especially not a longer run where you're mentally already fatigued. Mental fatigue really decreases physical performance. Our steps aren't as accurate. Our mind is on other things. Our risk of acute injury is a lot higher, but also our risk of chronic injury is pretty high because we're not going to pay as much attention to our form, or we're just going to be naturally a little bit lazier in our form subconsciously because our mind is distracted and because we're so fatigued mentally and sometimes physically. So sometimes a morning run is actually a little bit healthier because our mind is clear and fresh. And then stress is another big one for many of the same reasons. But that stress and that mental fatigue, what it can do is actually cause an overtraining effect. Just like if you were to run too many miles too quickly as you're ramping up, if you were to increase by 25 or 30% per week instead of a smaller amount, you may find that you have more overuse injuries. Same idea with high stress or high mental fatigue. It's going to cause those same types of overtraining effects. It's going to burn more calories actually on your run when you're more stressed because your mind is racing more and things like that. It can cause a lot of overtraining type problems. So that's a big kicker. And then sleep. If you're not sleeping well and you run, it's going to cause problems as well. So you're going to be too fatigued, and again, for many of the same reasons, you're just not going to run as accurately in terms of foot placement, form, and other things, and that leads to overuse injuries. So those are three big areas in which you can improve those overuse type problems. Well, I guess four. So cross training, mental fatigue, life stress, and sleep. If you get those things in, it's going to really help decrease your injury rate. So there it is for today, how to avoid those endurance type injuries or overuse injuries. Thanks so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again. Again, if you want to follow this series, go ahead and drop us some love. Say I'm in the comments down below, and we'll get you tagged and get you part of this Keeping Runners on the Road series. Thanks so much, and we'll see you.